Tonight I'm going to tell you a story about a location where visitors have described orbs, Native American chanting, unexplained sounds, disembodied voices, things moving on their own, cold spots, full body apparitions, and people actually physically being touched by things that they can't see. To add to this, over 300 bodies are suspected to be buried on the property, and it was the location of at least one known horrific murder of 3 children. Later, it was turned into an amusement park that saw its own tragedies of at least 2 known children's accidental death on the property. It now stands abandoned, all the brightly colored rides fading away and rusting, all the while being taken over by the wild trees, vines, and weeds that are in the area. What is the haunted location I'm talking about tonight? Well, it's the haunted, abandoned amusement park of Lake Shawnee, located in Rock, West Virginia. Hi, welcome to Horror History Haunting. I'm Christina, your host. And I wanted to take a moment to say a big thank you to all of my subscribers that have been with me from the beginning, and a big welcome and hello and thank you to all my most recent subscribers. Welcome to the family. You are appreciated, and the reason I keep making videos. Thank you. The Clay Family Incident. Sometime in April of 1774, Michael Clay was given a crown grant of 803 acres by the royal governor of Virginia, Lord Dunmore, in a place they called at the time Clover Bottom, Virginia. It would eventually become Rock, West Virginia in Mercer County. The exact location of what would become the Lake Shawnee Amusement Park is where they set up their homestead. As the first settlers in the area, it seemed to them they were gifted a farmer's paradise. Spanning both sides of the Bluestone River, the Clay family created a very prosperous life for themselves. The farm not only grew tobacco and wheat, but it also had an orchard, livestock, a nice-sized kitchen garden, and Mr. and Mrs. Clay's family grew, and they eventually had about 16 kids in total during their entire lives together. In August of 1783, their peaceful life would be changed forever. The family had just harvested the grain crop for that year, and Mr. Clay and his son had started building fences around the stacks of grain to protect them from the livestock on the farm. Seeing that his teenage son Ezekiel and Bartley had the job in hand, he decided to go hunting. I imagine that when he hugged his wife and kissed her goodbye and waved goodbye to the kids, that would be the last time he would ever speak to some of them. As was very common back in those days, the older children had chores to do. As I stated, the 2 teenage boys were already hard at work doing the fencing, while the older girls were busy washing the clothes along the riverbed. All of the younger children were in the house with their mother at the time. No one could have imagined, only a couple hundred yards away, 11 Native American Shawnee warriors were creeping up on them through the weeds. That was when a gunshot echoed through the little valley and young Bartley collapsed to the ground dead. One of the Shawnee warriors had shot him. The girls at the river, hearing the gunshot, started fleeing in panic towards the house for safety. They were just running. Tabitha, one of the oldest girls, basically ran right into the Shawnee warrior in the process of scalping her brother Bartley. Tabitha, not knowing that Bartley was already deceased, tried to protect her brother by jumping on the man. As the two struggled back and forth, Tabitha attempted to reach for the warrior's knife, but he was ultimately too strong for her and cut her down easily, stabbing her over and over again in his anger. He basically chopped this little girl into pieces before he finally killed her. Ezekiel was captured by another warrior, as he undoubtedly was trying to run for his life. The warriors eventually left with Ezekiel and took with them Bartley and Tabitha's scalps as trophies. Somehow, an understandably devastated and distraught Mrs. Clay was able to drag her children's young, lifeless bodies into the house. She then took all of her smaller children and the surviving older ones, and they went on a 6-mile on-foot track to the nearest settlement called Bailey to find help and safety. When Mr. Clay returned that evening after dark and discovered his 2 murdered children, he must have assumed the worst about the rest of his family. That they were either captured and taken by the Native Americans or killed. He too fled the farm in the dead of night towards the close-by settlements. It took him until morning to reach these settlements because as he made his way through the woods, the 6 miles, he could hear the sounds of the Shawnee warriors on horseback trying to track him, but he was somehow able to evade them and make it to safety. When he got to the settlement and found out what happened, he rounded up a group of men into a posse, 2 of which were his sons, Charles and Michael Jr. Charles was only 12 years old at the time, and then they headed off to hunt down the warriors and hopefully rescue Ezekiel. What the posse didn't consider was that the warriors could have split up, and that's what they did. They split into 2 different groups. One group of warriors headed over the Cherry Pond Mountain, and the other had traveled the opposite side of the same mountain. The posse caught up with one of the groups of warriors at Pond Fork, surrounding them and attacking them at once. 2 warriors were killed immediately, while another wounded warrior begged for his life. Charles Clay, only 12 years old at the time, seeing that his brother was not with them and that they had split up, were so angry that he walked up to the warrior and executed him on the spot. 2 of the members of the posse took long strips of skin from the dead warriors, eventually making them into morbid razor straps that their families possessed for generations as some sort of weird morbid trophy. The posse finally caught up with the other warriors over 200 miles north of Cotton Bottom in Chillicothe, Ohio. But unfortunately, it was too late for Ezekiel. He had already been brutally tortured and eventually burned alive at the stake. The Shawnee chief did loan Mr. Clay a horse to carry the body of his dead son back home. All 3 children are buried on the property. There is a memorial marker locating their grave site, but strangely enough, Ezekiel is not mentioned on the memorial stone for some reason. The amusement park. Conley Snido Sr., not knowing the history of the land, purchased it in 1926. He created Lake Shawnee Amusement Park. It was created for local families to relax and enjoy when their fathers weren't off in the coal mines. The park boasted attractions like a man-made swimming lake with canoes and paddle boats and even a water slide, and it had a yummy concession stand, cabins for overnight stays, and even had a racetrack. The park also had 2 huge rides that were popular with the kids and teens at the time. A large brightly colored Ferris wheel covered in lights and the mechanical swing decked out in a similar style. It was a magical, wonderful place full of laughter and fun. That was until tragedy struck in the 1950s when 2 young children died on the property. The first was a little girl enjoying the mechanical swing. I imagine she was having the time of her life, swinging around the swing, and unfortunately a large delivery truck that was delivering soda to the concession stand backed up too far and entered the path of the swing. So when the little girl came around, the truck was in the way and she slammed right into the truck, killing her instantly. The other known death was of a little boy that was dropped off by his mother in the morning to enjoy the day swimming in the man-made pond. At some point, he must have been exploring or something. Somehow he got his arm stuck in one of the drainage pipes located there, and he unfortunately drowned. There are rumors that the park had at least 4 more deaths during its operation, but I couldn't find any evidence to substantiate that claim in any way. Unfortunately, the amusement park closed its doors in 1966, and the land sat vacant for decades.
The grand reopening.
The man responsible for reopening the park in 1985 was a man that worked at the park back in its heyday He purchased the land in hopes to return it to its former glory. That man was Gaylord White. He purchased a Ferris wheel, and he found a mechanical swing he thought looked strikingly like the one from the old days. It would actually turn out that the serial number matched the swing from the 1920s. It seemed serendipitous at the time, and I imagine everyone saw it as a good omen for the park and for its grand opening in 1987. However, a few years later, the White family had to close the property as an amusement park due to the rising costs of high insurance prices, but they tried to switch gears and keep the land active, but instead turning the pond into a fishing spot to hold fishing tournaments and the like. And they were looking into expanding the property even more. They wanted to make a mud bogging area, which they knew would bring in crowds from all around to watch. During the excavation of the site they had picked for the mud bogging area, they started to discover surprising things about the history of the property and the Shawnee tribe that once lived there. But when they discovered human remains, they stopped all the excavation and contacted the authorities. With the help of Marshall University and Concord University, they were able to discover a lot of ancient artifacts belonging to the Shawnee tribe and at least 13 bodies, which were mostly children, buried there. Some people have stated that there may even be a mass grave there totaling 3,000 bodies. But again, I couldn't find any facts to back up that claim. Due to the historic ramifications, the White family were never able to further develop the property. Eventually, the family began to let people visit the property due to its rich history and the strange happenings that people experience on the property. You can currently get a ghost tour and even stay overnight by appointments only. Links are in the description below. They also have a dark carnival haunted house attraction during the Halloween season, the hauntings. So, what have people experienced on the property? Well, some visitors have said they've seen a young girl in a frilly sleeve dress skipping, running, and playing around the swing area. Her specific swing has been marked by a red ribbon, and they also see shadow people. They hear Native American chanting at night. One person was trapped in an old ticket booth and couldn't get out. Another person was thrown out of it. And there is a little toy windmill, you know, the kind you blow on, attached to the side of the ticket booth that starts and stops on request, and some investigators actually use it to communicate with whatever's on the property. Some people have reported seeing a young boy wandering the grounds. People have said they feel watched, followed, even touched by unseen forces. People have taken pictures with ghostly figures in them, faces, orbs, and strange light anomalies that they see in the photographs. If you want to visit, please make sure you make an appointment to visit the property. Again, the information is down in the description for tickets and more information. They have guided tours, and you're able to spend the night. And then there's bathrooms for the public, electricity to charge your various devices, and a small amount of lighting, and there's an actual gazebo that you can use. Make sure you also have with you a good pair of boots, because the property does get very muddy when it rains, and dress for the weather because it can get cold. If you want to leave gifts for the spirits there, you're more than welcome. There's a specific area around the swings where you can leave the little girl a small toy. A stone in the clearing is designated for you to leave an offering to the Shawnee spirits, and of course the Clay children have their memorial stone. And don't forget, the Dark Carnival Haunted House attraction is in October. Feel free to take pictures and videos on the property. If you do discover a ghostly photo bomber, make sure to share it with our community here and with the property owner. I'm sure they would love to see it, and I know I would too. If you happen to have any old photographs of the park back in its heyday, please share them too as well, along with the owner. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching this video till the end. Please continue the conversation down below in the comment section. Have a wonderful night, and as always, sweet dreams. Bye-bye.